What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's the Game Week 4 preview. So we're going to go through all the latest news, questions and topics to help get our FPL teams locked in for Game Week 4. There's so much stuff, we're just going to get into it right now. So the first thing we're going to cover is the international break chaos, right? I've called it chaos. So the Brazilian FA are not happy that the Premier League didn't release a bunch of players. Firmino, I think there's Ederson, Alisson, Rafinha, right? The list goes on. Fred from Man United as well, very big FPL player. And they're not happy they didn't release them. So they have asked FIFA to basically tell the Premier League that these players aren't allowed to play for another 5 days, right? Which would stop them being able to play for this game week, but it would also stop some of the players being able to play in European competitions. So it's not just the Premier League, it's also UEFA that have kind of got an interest in this, so to speak. The first thing to say is, let's not panic too much, because I just don't believe that this will happen. I just don't believe that these players will miss out. At the end of the day, they were going to miss this game. Like, let's say the Premier League banned them from playing. That means no matter what the club did, they couldn't have stopped them not playing this week. Because if they'd sent them, they would have gone to a red-listed country, in which case they wouldn't have been able to play on their return. If they didn't send them, the Premier League are going to ban them anyway. So it's kind of, the whole thing's a bit of a mess, to be honest. This is the BBC article on it, right? So just to quickly go through, Premier League clubs are hopeful that their players will be available. So that's what I'm saying. Don't panic just yet. There may be the case that the clubs play them and then see if there's any action that's taken against them. I just can't see them docking points or anything like that. Players who did not travel after being called up by Brazil, Mexico, so you got Jimenez as well, Paraguay and Chile have been banned for 5 days under FIFA regulations. Officials are in talk with FIFA to try and find a way around the issue. So nothing's been confirmed yet. I even think saying that they have been banned for 5 days is not... I don't know how true that actually is. Then it lists the teams that have got problems. So it's 8 players from 5 clubs have been affected. Brazil invokes the ban after the Premier League stopped players from appearing for their country, right? So I don't know if they've got a list of players anyway. Yeah, okay. So 3 Liverpool players, Firmino, Fabinho and Alisson. Ederson and Jesus for Man City. Rafinha for Leeds, which is a big one for me. Wolves and Mexico forward, Jimenez. And then you got Almiron for Newcastle and Serralta for Watford, which is not such a big deal. So I guess let's just answer a few questions, right? What if these players were banned from playing? I think the big ones like Rafinha and stuff like that, they've got pretty good fixtures afterwards. So ideally, you just want to use a bench player. I don't think they're worth getting rid of. If I was on a wild card, then I might look to get rid of them and bring them back in later on. But I think the most they're going to miss is 1 game, and I'd even be surprised if they're going to miss that at all. There are some players that are definitely going to miss out. So you've got Romero at Spurs, Buendia at Villa, and Martinez at Villa as well. Because they've been to a red-listed country, they're not going to be able to come back in and without isolation, essentially. So if you've got those players, I mean, I don't know why you've got Romero from Spurs anyway, but if you've got Martinez or Buendia because of Villa's first 3 good fixtures, it's time to get rid. So realistically, the update is there's no clear update yet. This is going to progress quickly over the next few days. I would be very surprised if these players miss out. Basically, if you're on a wild card, you could look to get rid of them. If you're not, I'd probably just keep them and play a bench player instead. Okay, so in a second, we're going to talk about 7.5 million-ish pound midfielders, right? And which ones I think are best, what we should be considering and stuff like that. Have we not talked about Pepe Mount enough? But I have partnered with Fantasy Football Scout, and part of this has, or part of the members area has, a comparison tool. So if you are stuck between a couple of players, you can use this to make your decision. Now, there's loads of other tools here. I'm not going to go through every single one today, but there's a lot there, a lot you can make use of over this FPL season. So click that link in the description below and get signed up. But for an example, right, if you wanted to say go for Greenwood, but you weren't sure whether Jota was a better option, then you can compare the two. Now, you can compare them 2021, which is this season. I usually show average per appearance, and there's a load of stuff here. So you can even see like where they take their shots from. So you can click on here and it'll show you exactly where they shoot from. So if you've got a player that shoots outside the box a lot, that's not as good as someone that gets a lot of shots inside the box, right? And then they've got loads of stats here, which I'm not going to go through all of these, but there's a bunch of stats there you can look for if you want to compare the players. And if you wanted to see a bigger sample size, you can put it down to 2020 and look at last year instead of this year. And again, you can compare the two. and you can do all the same stuff. So you can see exactly where they're kind of taking shots from, where they're making passes from, if they're a defender, where they're blocking from. Even for like non-FPL stuff, like it's pretty cool. But from an FPL point of view, it's super handy. So if you want to sign up and give that a go, link in the description below. I'd highly recommend it. It really is useful over the FPL season. And there's a whole bunch of other tools here you can use as well. So get comparing, click that link in the description below and get signed up. So a lot of people are looking at this price point, as I just discussed, like Greenwood and Jota, obviously they look good. You can see that on the Fantasy Football Scout members page. They like to take a lot of shots inside the box, which is handy. The reason a lot of people are looking around this price point is because a lot of people are doing the Fernandes to Ronaldo move, and they need a cheaper price midfielder in order to be able to do that. And there's like lots of choice, but no, I would say there's no standout. Unless Firmino ends up getting ruled out for like a month, then Jota would definitely be the standout. But outside of that, there's always like an issue with some of them. So for Jota, Torres and Greenwood, I'd say it's minutes. Pepe, to be honest as well, is a minutes issue. I don't think that he is absolutely nailed on. Like the thing with Arsenal is they've got so many players to fit into those kind of front four spots that you just can't be sure that Pepe's going to start every single week. And then Gundogan as well, and what's going to happen when De Bruyne is back, and he's apparently back now kind of training and stuff like that. So it might not be too long until he's back into the team. So does he go into a number 8 position alongside Gundogan instead of as a number 9? It's really hard to say. So like right now I'm thinking like Mason Mount is probably the one that hasn't been considered very much at all. And if anything, you could argue that he's the most nailed player on this list. Like it doesn't seem to matter what other changes Tuchel makes in that Chelsea side, Mount gets on the pitch. It's not to say he'll forever start and he'll start every single game, but he is pretty much the most nailed on this list, I would say. Now, fixtures-wise, he doesn't have the best fixtures after Villa. He's got Spurs and then Man City. But then we know how good the Chelsea fixture run is. So, depending on when your plan is to wildcard, you could make a case that just getting Mason Mount now to tick over the next few weeks and then into that kind of really good spell of fixtures could be the one. What I would say is, and you could say if you're wildcarded now, he could be the one to pick as well. If you're not wildcarding now, but you are going to wildcard around game week 7 or 8, I just feel like you can do something a bit more interesting than getting Mason Mount in before Spurs and Man City, right? So next 3 weeks, 4, 5 and 6, he's got to play Spurs and Man City in 2 of those. So I think I probably would go for one of the others. Greenwood is still such a tricky one. Like so much of that Greenwood call comes down to where Pogba plays. Now in the last match, Pogba played in the middle. So maybe that is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer saying, look, I've got so many attackers now. Pogba has to play in the middle so that I can get Greenwood, Fernandes, Sancho and Ronaldo all on the pitch at the same time. But there's no guarantee in that. But what I would say is I do think Greenwood will start this week because I just think Sanchez apparently has got a bit of a knock, didn't play for England. He might not risk him. Even if he does start or doesn't, he could play on the left and Greenwood could play on the right. Like, in my mind, there's no doubt that Ronaldo plays up front, right? So you could go for Greenwood now, and then if he becomes an issue later on, get rid. Because Man United's fixtures over the next few weeks are not that bad, really. It's Newcastle, then it's West Ham, then it's Villa, then it's Everton, then it's Leicester. None of those are really like completely awful fixtures that you have to get rid of him. He has got the form, he's got the fixtures, and he could keep his place. So I actually quite like Greenwood, but if Firmino's out, it has to be Jota, no questions asked. And even if Firmino's available, like he might not be available because of the Brazil thing, he might have like a niggling hamstring issue, so you'd expect that Jota is going to start the next game, and then they got another 2 good fixtures. So if you got another at least one start and kind of 30-20 minutes in the other one, or 20 to 30 minutes I should say, then I feel like in the short term Jota's probably the most interesting pick on this list. I kind of like Gundogan, I've got to be honest. Like if he keeps his place, he's going to tick over in that Man City team, but he just doesn't seem that interesting to me. And I was all for getting Torres, and I've kind of like talked myself out of it a little bit. I just think we're just all kidding ourselves that he is now the number 9 for Man City and that is not going to change unless we get some information that kind of Pep says, yeah, he's our man, he's going to play every week, which he's never going to do. Then I feel like he's just an issue that's going to come up soon. Obviously, you've got Champions League starting as well. Will there be any rotation? How many of those games will he play? And also, Man City's fixtures after Leicester and Southampton aren't even that good. They've got to play Chelsea and Liverpool. So, like, in my mind, the way I'm thinking about it is, if Torres, and obviously there is a chance that he goes absolutely mad over the next couple of weeks, and I massively regret it, but if he's still the number 9 after Chelsea and Liverpool, and that's with De Bruyne back and Foden back, and I don't think Foden really makes a difference because he usually plays on the left anyway, but there could be a knock-on, right? Foden comes in on the left, Grealish moves to the middle, De Bruyne goes up front, and Torres moves out of the team. That could happen, right? So this is the problem. We're trying to overthink Pep Roulette, and we know that it's going to be an issue. So I've kind of gone off Torres, and I just think if he's still the number 9 after Chelsea-Liverpool, then he'll be such a good option. I don't really care if he's gone up in price. I'll just buy in then. So right now, just to kind of narrow it down, if I'm on a wild card, or I'm not wild carding in game week 7 or 8, I'm going to wild card a lot later, I'd be tempted just to get Mount in now, because the fixtures are really good. He's fairly nailed, and he's just going to tick over in points. The numbers are quite good. Otherwise, you could take a risk on Greenwood if it's a short-term move. So again, if you're wild carding in game week 7 or 8, you could get Greenwood in, hope he keeps his place for the next few. And if he doesn't, then maybe look to get rid of him. If Firmino's out, though, it has to be Jota. And to be honest, 4 of the next 5 fixtures are so good. If you can get to Jota easily, he's probably the one I would go for. The premium forward battle, very, very interesting. Like, there's so many players this season. I think people are already struggling to kind of comprehend which ones they should go for. Like, I say, I'm going to go for Ronaldo. Oh, you're writing off Chelsea. If you've got an agenda against Chelsea, you've forgotten about Harry Kane. Like, you just can't fit them all in. I don't know how many more times I can say that. You've got to make your choice. Now, these are all numbers from last season. These are per 90 minutes from last season. XGI is just basically XG plus XA together, right? So expected goals and expected assists equals expected goal involvement, just to bore you with that. So the numbers are all really good. Ronaldo last year had a higher expected goal threat. Now, this is without penalties, by the way. But Kane and Lukaku kind of top it up with assist potential as well. Ronaldo didn't have that as much last year. And to be honest, I don't think he's going to have that much this year at Man United either, just the way they're going to play. I think if anything, he will go to score more goals now, and the rest of the team will probably have more assists. So Bruno might drop some goals, but increase that of assists. Now, you might say attacking returns wise, that's virtually the same. But from an FPL points perspective, I should say, get your words out, the goals are worth more than the assists, right? So you've got to take that into account. But anyway, we're not talking about Fernandes in this. So which one is better? The price point is not necessarily key, but it is important because we all want Lukaku from game week 7, right? Or 8. I think you can do without him for game week 7, but you have to not have to have him, but he is a great option from game week 8. And there is a chance that he gets penalties, by the way, because Jorginho has missed a few now this year. So there is a chance that Lukaku gets penalties. He's obviously their main striker. He'll want to be scoring as many goals as possible. So let's not completely rule that out, but we also can't say for sure that he's definitely got them. But that price difference of $1 million can do a lot. Like, if I think about the most standard wildcard teams, that lets you upgrade a 4.5 million defender to someone in Chelsea, for example, like Rudiger or something like that. So it is quite a big deal. And I think for that reason, you could make a case just to start with Lukaku. And when I talk about these players, I am trying to take off my kind of biased Man United hat, right? Because I do really like Ronaldo as an option in FPL. But then I go to the fixtures, and this is what I keep coming back to, right? And I know it's boring, but you've got to think about fixtures. This idea that players can score in hard fixtures, like, I think that's really, it's not necessarily bad FPL management, but you've got to reword how you say it. It's not about they can score, it's about what the chances of them scoring are, and those chances are reduced. So Lukaku's playing Spurs away and Man City at home. So if I'm thinking about bringing in a player right now, do I want Villa, Spurs, Man City, or do I want Newcastle, West Ham, Villa? I want Man United's fixtures. And this is what I keep saying as well. It's not a case of you get to game week 7 and you've got Ronaldo against Everton and you need to panic and you have to get Lukaku in against Southampton. If you've got another transfer to do or you want to delay the wildcard till game week 8, you can keep Ronaldo against Everton. That's a perfectly fine fixture. Just going on to, have we forgotten about Harry Kane? I mean, we have forgotten about him a little bit, right? To be fair, he was injured, not injured, but he wasn't obviously playing. He had that whole Man City thing as well. But they've got to play Chelsea in game week 5, and then it's Arsenal away. And we can all sit here and laugh about how bad Arsenal have been, but they've also played 2 really tough teams, and I wouldn't expect them to keep playing like that all season. So against Brentford, they were missing players. Then you play Chelsea, then you play Man City. Like, that's a tough run of fixtures, those 2 games. So Arsenal aren't necessarily going to be pushovers. And I know everyone's going to tell me about Kane's record against Arsenal. It doesn't mean that he's going to score every single time. So if I'm looking short term, I think Ronaldo is the better option. If we're talking like you want to bring a player in now for like 6 or 7 game weeks, then it probably is Lukaku. I don't really see a reason to go for both. And the only reason I would probably go for Lukaku now is if I could make a major upgrade with that 1 million. But if I was happy with my team, then I would probably just go for Ronaldo. He's got the better fixtures. Villa at home, great fixture for Lukaku, but Newcastle is just as good, if not better. And then Ronaldo gets to play Villa at home anyway, so he gets that fixture instead of having to play Man City. So for me, it is Ronaldo. We still have to wait and see if he's fit and available, but he is training. I just don't see why Solskjaer won't start with him. Let's see what he says in the press conference. And just really quickly, on anyone that's talking about, should I take a hit to get Ronaldo in? We're going to cover that in just a bit. But yeah, Ronaldo for me, yes, we're going to forget about Kane for now, but if you've got that premium forward spot, you can always change to him later. And that's why getting this spot in your team is probably key in the future. So I got asked lots of questions about Wolves. I'm going to be honest, I've been super lazy. I've just nicked this from my fixtures video that I did at the start of the international break, and I'm just going to talk about them quickly again. Like, do we need to triple up on Wolves? I mean, the fixtures are good, but do we know they're that good after just 3 games? Especially 3 games that they've lost. They've conceded in every single one. They haven't scored yet. And I'm not saying that means that it's going to happen for the rest of the season. And the fixtures are that good that you could go for at least 1 or 2. I don't think a triple up is bad. You could go for the goalkeeper, 1 defender and 1 attacker, but I don't see too much reason for doubling up on the attack, especially. Not just because I think they're bad options, just because there's so many other really good options right now that have also got good fixtures to come. So if I was picking Wolves players right now, I do like Semedo at 4.9. I know a lot of people have talked about Marçal and Cody as well, who are both cheaper. And if they stick to this back 5, or this back 3, obviously, with wing-back system, then Marçal and Cody look pretty much nailed on as well. And Semedo really is not massively attacking, so you could just go for Marçal. I just think if they were to switch to a different formation, like a 4 at the back, then Semedo almost certainly keeps his place. Does Marçal? I'm not so sure. Which 2 centre-backs does he go with? I'm sure Cody would be one of them because he's pretty much nailed on for so long now. But that's the only reason why I'm kind of more moving towards Semedo than the others. In the kind of midfield role, you've got Trincao and Traore. I don't really have a massive preference, right? Again, those expected data, expected goal involvements from last season. Traore has obviously been performing a little bit better so far this season, but still hasn't put the ball in the back of net. And I do worry about his finishing. So Trincao could be a nice little differential. But then you've got players like Sarr for the same price you could go for instead, that you know what he's all about. He could be on penalties and he's got really good fixtures as well. So if you're on a wild card, I know people are looking for different things to do, and Wolves could be one of those things. I do like them, but I don't think a triple up is really necessary. And like Jimenez, the problem he's got is so many other players up front, like Calvert-Lewin if he's fit, Bamford, etc., Antonio, who I just think are better options right now. So I'd probably be looking at 1 defender, maybe a double up on Sarr, but I like the saving you get with Sanchez, and possibly Traore or Trincao. But to be honest, I think Sarr could do just as well, if not better. Let's talk about Son then. So he's picked up an injury while on international duty. Now, I know sometimes we see players pick up injuries for international breaks and you think, is this an international break injury? He's going to be fine. But Son doesn't really strike me as a player that would try and get out of playing for his country. I don't know the ins and outs though, so maybe he has on this particular case, or in this particular case. Now, whether or not you should get rid of him, again, we're going to have to wait for the press conferences. I hate saying that, but at the end of the day, we don't know if he's fit. If Nuno says that he's fit to play, then that's fine. You can keep him because it's Crystal Palace away. The one thing I would say is if there's any indication that he might miss out, or Nuno isn't really sure and he says it's going to be a late test or something like that, then yes, losing him for Crystal Palace away would be annoying. But again, if you're going to wildcard in game week 7 or 8, then you could potentially skip a possible benching or game missed against Palace, then Chelsea at home, then Arsenal away. Then you could get him back for Villa, Newcastle in game week 7, 8. Then they got West Ham. So the fixtures are a little bit better afterwards, so you could skip those fixtures. So if I had Son, because he's holding so much money in my midfield, I feel like there's better ways to kind of spread those funds around. I would probably look to get rid of him if there's an indication that he might miss out. If he's fit, you have to keep him. It's Crystal Palace away, right? I don't think there's many kind of better players you could bring in one move for this week only. Like if you had a bit more money and you wanted to swap to Ronaldo, okay, fair enough. We're going to talk about taking a hit for him later, like I said. But Crystal Palace away is decent. So if Nuno says he's fine, I'd probably keep. If there's any indication he might miss out, then I think I'd probably use that as an excuse to get rid, especially if you're wildcarding soon, because Chelsea at home and Arsenal away might be much trickier. So again, I've literally just nicked this from the fixtures video, just because a lot of people ask me about Arsenal. Are we overlooking them? Just really quickly going to cover this. So about Aubameyang's just not an option, okay? Yes, Norwich at home is decent. Burnley away is decent. They got some good fixtures afterwards as well. But he takes a forward spot, right? So unless you're someone who is a bit riskier with their player, a bit more aggressive, you could get him in this week for like 2 weeks and then get rid of him. I wouldn't have a problem with that. If someone had Aubameyang in their team, then great. But I wouldn't be going out of my way to bring him in when he takes up like quite a valuable forward spot, right? And also, again, they've got all those players to play in those 4 positions, like Saka, Pepe, Odegaard, Smith Rowe, Aubameyang, Lacazette. Like, there's so many players that can play in just 4 spots. I just worry a little bit about rotation. Maybe I got it wrong with Aubameyang. Maybe he'll just play every single game. The one I'd probably go for is Saka, because I feel like however they line up, he will play, and he's 6.3 million. So for me, he is comparable to a Traore, to a Trincao, to a Sarr. You could go for Saka instead. Norwich and Burnley, great fixtures. Spurs a little bit trickier, but then it's Brighton, Palace, Villa. So it is a nice run of fixtures. So I actually think if I was going for a midfielder from Arsenal or an attacker from Arsenal, it would probably be Saka. I probably said the same thing in the fixtures video. And then Tierney I really like. I think Tierney is comparable to going to Semedo. I think, again, don't write Arsenal off because they've lost against 2 of the best teams in the league. I know they lost against Brentford as well. First game, they were missing quite a few players. This isn't a bad team, right? Again, it's funny that they're in down near the relegation zone and stuff like that. You know, I love Arsenal being there like everyone else, but they are a good team and they will turn it around, and they've got the fixtures to do that. So if you said to me I'm going Tierney over Semedo, I would think, yeah, nice move. So Tierney and Saka are really the only 2 that I would consider. You could go for Ben White because he's dropped in price and so he's a bit cheaper now. As like someone just for the bench. Again, I don't hate that. But if I want like the best options, I'm saying Tierney and Saka, and that's pretty much who I'd look at from Arsenal. So I've also taken a couple of straight up questions that were asked, right? Which I think were asked quite a few times. So this is the first one. What's the biggest hit you would take to get Ronaldo? When would you say, nope, this just isn't worth it right now? For me, that's just a simple question. If I'm saying -8 to get Ronaldo, I'm saying no. Now, captaincy plays a big part in when you take hits for premium players. So if, for example, you think that Ronaldo is the best captain option this week, like he's ahead of Salah, he's ahead of Fernandes, he's ahead of Lukaku, and you want to take a -4 to bring him in, I don't think that's a problem at all. And I'm not talking from like a Man United perspective and like a biased fan opinion. I mean, if you're taking a -4 for a premium that you think is the best captain that you don't own, then I think a -4 is fine. When you start talking about -8s, for me, that's too much. Because then you got to think of what's the score that he's likely to get, and then you take 8 points off straight away. The players you're taking out really that bad? So I would probably cut it off at -8. And I know it's tricky because then people are really going to want Ronaldo and they're going to want to take the hit, and for whatever reason they've got to move some funds around, so they can only do it in a -8. But that just feels like too much for me for Newcastle home, especially if you own Salah, because you can just captain him instead. Like, he's not a bad option. We will talk about captaincy tomorrow, but the way I'm looking at it, Ronaldo's a great captain this week, as long as he's available, as long as Solskjaer says he's probably going to start, etc. But Salah's also really good. So -4 would be the maximum I do. And to be honest, if you're not going to captain him, if you're going to captain Salah, you could make an argument just not to own him. But I get it. He's one of the greatest players of all time. He's playing against Newcastle at home. I really want him to. So I'm probably going to take the -4. I don't know if I'm going to captain him, but -8 I'd probably say no to. So there were also loads of variations of this question, which is basically, should I take a -8 or what point would you say that you should just wildcard instead of taking hits? And I really think at this stage of the season, when we're so early in, that -8 just feels like too much, especially if you're looking to wildcard in game week 7 or 8 anyway, because I feel like you can set up a pretty good team for right now and still have it to be in a good position for game week 7 or 8. So, for example, that Chelsea fixture swing we've mentioned all season, if you've got Ronaldo in your wildcard team, you can switch to Lukaku later on. You could even put Rudiger and Mason Mount in the game week 4 wildcard team anyway. And then everyone else, like Wolves, Leeds, Liverpool, have all got good fixtures. You're going to want them in your team either way, whether you're wildcarding now or later. So I don't really see a massive issue in wildcarding now if you're thinking about a -8. Like, if I was thinking about a -8, I'm thinking, do I really need to hold on to the wildcard? Like, that's a lot of points after 3 weeks. What am I changing? And not only what am I changing, but how many other players could I change as well? Not just for the sake of it, but could I genuinely change and maybe get some upside, maybe have a bit of an opportunity to get in ahead of everyone else? I've actually made 2 wildcard videos so far this international break. So there's one that's like a guide, and then there's one about when to wildcard. So go and watch those as well if you're unsure. But -4 is fine, I would say, unless it's going to create a load of other -4s moving forward, in which case, again, you might just want a wild card. But when you start hitting -8, I would question either, one, whether you really need the hit in the first place, or two, whether or not it's best just a wildcard instead. So -8, you're in wildcard territory, in my opinion, especially if you're just going to do it in 7 or 8 anyway. There we go. Hopefully that was a lot covered. If you've got any other questions, leave them below and I'll try and get back to as many as possible. I am recording a Patreon Q&A as well tomorrow after the press conferences. So if you haven't already signed up for that and you want to, there is a link in the description below. Thank you to James P, who has signed up since the last video as well. There's also a mini league on offer, so anyone that signed up before Game Week 4 deadline will get entered into the September mini league as long as you're on the middle tier or above. So these are some of the prizes for the league. So you've got the Mind Game, which is a book by FPL Raptor. He's not paying me for that or anything. I'm buying the books myself, etc. And then FPL Merch has put together this little package which he's going to send out with the mug, the t-shirt and the pint glass. And you also get a picture by FPL Doodles as well. So this is one that I got him to do me, Michael Antonio. It just had to be, really, didn't it? But there you go. If you want to sign up to Patreon, link in the description below. Don't forget to sign up to Fantasy Football Scout as well. There's links in the description for that as well. Go and get all the tools you're going to need for FPL over this whole season. You can sign up monthly or yearly, however you want to do it. I'll be back tomorrow with a captaincy video. Thank you for watching. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.